Hello, my name's Ciara Callaghan. I'm a needlework and natural colour artist, and today I'm going to show you how to make some dyes using food waste. So it's really important that we do this because we should be using our food in as many ways possible before we put it in the bin or the compost. But also I think it's really important that we begin to step back from synthetic dyes, which can be incredibly polluting for water sources and for people, and it can often be poisoning for wildlife, and also psychologically synthetic dyes can be quite harsh and quite garish, where natural colours have lots and lots of different tones in them, so they're very soothing to look at, and they're good for our brains when we see these kind of natural soothing colours. And also natural dyes are better for our skin. So I am going to show you 3 different food dyes that you can do at home. So the first thing that you'll need to do, and the first step in all dyeing, is to scour the fabric. So scour just means washing. It's really important that we wash our fabric before we use it. So often when you buy new fabric, it will have a chemical coating on it, and also it will need to shrink a bit in the wash. And if you've got something at home that you're going to dye already, it's nice to just give it an extra little wash so it doesn't have any leftover kind of washing powders or perfume or things like that on it. So I'm just using a cotton, which is also good to use for the dyes that we're doing, because it can withstand boiling water. If you're using something that's silk or wool, just make sure that you treat that fabric accordingly. So after it's been washed, what we're going to do is we're just going to place it in water, just cold water's fine, and make sure that it all goes in there. And you want to kind of keep it under the water until bubbles stop coming out, and that's when you know that it's thoroughly wetted. And the reason that we want to make it really wet is so that the water has penetrated all of the fibres in the cloth, and that means that we're going to get a really lovely even colour when we dye. So the first dye I'm going to show you today is onion skins. Really lovely one to start with because you get really great results, and also onion skins are something that straight away get thrown in the bin or the compost because we can't eat them, but I really implore you to keep hold of yours because they're a really beautiful source of yellow, orange and gold dyes. So once you've dyed with them, you won't throw them away again. And also, because everybody really does throw them away, it's a great one to ask your friends and family to keep hold of for you, so you get lots very quickly. So, onion skin dye. What we're going to do is take your onion skins and just put them in a pan. And the more onion skins you use, the better colour that you get. But I definitely kind of start with no less than 3 or 4 handfuls and see what colour you get. And if you've got more than that, that's great, then put that in. So what you're going to do now is just add cold water and just pour that over the onion skins. And then you just kind of push the onion skins under the water so that they're all nice and wetted. If the onion skins fill this much part of the pan, add about 5 times as much water over that. And then what you're going to do is pop them on the stove and heat begin to heat it up. So essentially what you're making is like a giant cup of tea, but it's with onion skins and water. If you're hoping to get a yellow shade from your onion skins, then just heat it very gently, but don't let it boil. If you want to go for more orangey gold tones, then have it on a rolling boil, which is what I'm going to do because I think they're really beautiful colours. So I'm going to put this on the hob now, and I'm going to leave it for about 1 hour. I'm going to check as it's cooking to make sure that too much water doesn't evaporate, and also you'll be able to see quite quickly that the liquid is already beginning to change colour and take on these really beautiful deep orangey tones. So when you're happy with the colour of the liquid, which I am, we've got really lovely strong really rich orange in the onion skin pot now, you can either strain the onion skins out and throw them away, or I just like to leave them in, as long as you don't mind picking them out of your your final bit of cloth, and I think that's just because if there is any more pigment in them that isn't in the water yet, you're just giving it an extra bit of time to kind of keep developing and get even richer. So what you're going to do is wring out the cloth that you wetted at the beginning, and we're going to open that up. This is to make sure that we get a really lovely even dye colour. And then you're just going to slowly lower it into the pot, and you're also going to, wow, look at that, already beautiful oranges developing from just one dip. So imagine this is going to be lovely after we've left it on for a while. So we're just going to put that in, and then we're going to leave it on a low heat probably for about 1 hour, and then get it out and see how the colour's developed. So this has been in for about an hour now. I've turned the heat off, and we're just going to take it out, and yes, really beautiful apricot-y orange colour. So what you're going to do is just dip it in some cold water to rinse it. I'm just going to hang this out to dry, and again it might fade a shade lighter as it dries, but I think that's a really beautiful orange. The second dye we're going to do is avocado skins and stones. So again, a really nice way to use every part of the avocado, because these would usually go in the bin or the compost, but also I think it's really important that because we don't grow avocados in England and we have to get them flown over, that we really make those air miles worth it by using every part of the fruit that we can. And again, you can either freeze these or dry them out, so it's a really nice one to ask your friends and family to keep hold of for you as well. Avocado skins and stones both have pigment in, both have colour in. There's more in the pits, so make sure you definitely keep hold of them, but by all means throw the skins in as well. And you'll be surprised at the colour that comes out, because avocado we're going to get these really beautiful blush pinks and oranges from using avocado. So if you just break up the skins, which is very easy if they've been dried, and then just the pits, just throw them in as they are. Then we're going to add cold water. And we're going to put this on the stove, and again we're going to heat it gently for about 1 hour. Again, you're going to see the liquid change colour, and it will go a really beautiful deep red colour. If the water hasn't turned that colour, sometimes it goes kind of browny orangey first. Just leave it, it just means that it hasn't been on the heat for long enough. And it's really important with avocado that we don't bring it to a boil, because we don't want to damage the dye by cooking it too much. With avocado you can also add something alkaline to help bring out the pink rosy tones. So you could use something that you might have in the house, would be either bicarbonate of soda or washing soda crystals. So I'm going to add a little bit of bicarbonate of soda, just about 1 teaspoon, and that's just going to help them pinky tones come out of the fruit. So that is going to go on the hob and just gently heat for 1 hour. And again, same as with the onion skin, we're just going to check, and yet that avocado's got a really lovely reddy colour, the liquid. So if you just take your teaspoon again and just hold it under the surface of the water, I can hardly see the teaspoon because there's so much pigment in the water there, so that's what you're looking for. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just use a slotted spoon to take out all the avocados, so we're left with just the dye. You can also do this by pouring it through a colander. Make sure there's another pan underneath to catch the dye, and then you can just pop the dye stuff, the avocado skins and stones, in the compost. So I think it's just really lovely that you've eaten them and they've nourished you as a food, and now you're going to be able to wear them or sleep beneath them as a dye. And then if you have a compost bin, you can put them in the compost, and they're going to break down and feed the soil again. So you've really made the most of this food, and you haven't taken any part of it for granted, which I think is really, really important. So I'm going to take the pre-wetted fabric that we put in just ordinary cold water at the very beginning, give it a wringing it out of it, and then same as with the onion skin dye, what you're going to do is you're going to open it out. So you don't want to leave any creases in there, because that will create a dye resist, and you'll have some of the fabric won't have any dye. And just the same as with the other ones, as you see when you take it out, you already are beginning to see that lovely rose pink on the cloth. So just going to put that all the way in. So we're just going to put that in, and then we're going to leave it on a low heat probably for about 1 hour, and then get it out and see how the colours developed. Okay, so the avocado dye has been on the hob for an hour, and we're going to take it out now. We've got a really beautiful blush pink colour. I'm really happy with that. So that is really lovely. Any little bits of avocado that you may be left in, you can pull out here. And then being careful not to burn yourself on the hot water, you can take that over to your bowl of fresh water, and we're just going to plunge that in. Just going to wring that out. So the patches that are a darker pink are the ones that sat up out of the liquid. So if you like to have more of them kind of patches where the colour varies, it's nice to just keep stirring it as you're going. If you want it all to be the same kind of this paler ballerina pink, then just make sure that all of the cloth is submerged under the water for the whole time that you're dyeing. The third and final dye we're going to do today is using tea. So you can either keep tea bags after they've been used and just start to build up a store of those, or I'm using some old out-of-date tea bags that I found in a shed. So what you need to do is, I said in the onion skin dye that it was like making a giant cup of tea, and that is especially true of this because you really are making a giant cup of tea. So this one you don't actually need to put on the hob, it doesn't need to heat up, because you can put the cloth in the hot dye and leave it just to cool down, and it's going to dye just as well as if you had it constantly heated on the stove. So I'm always very generous with these, and especially if you're using ones that have already been used to make tea, just use loads of them, and you'll see you want it to look like a really, really strong cup of tea. And that means that you've got loads and loads of dye in there. So a lovely thing about tea is that just like onions, it also has tannins in them, which means that without having to do anything, it's a permanent source of dye. And I'm just filling that with boiling water. Like I said, I'm just making a cup of tea, really, or a jug of tea. I'm just going to stir them in with my tongs and let it get nice and rich. So you can either use tea as it is to dye your fabric, and you're going to get some nice tans and beigey brown colours. But one of the things that I really love about tea dye, and why it's one of my favourites, is that you can get lots and lots of different shades of grey, and some of them quite cold greys or warm greys, and I think that's really beautiful. So what I have done is I've got an iron solution here. So to make an iron solution at home, what you'd need to do is get some rusty nails or things that have rust on them from the garden or from the streets, wherever you can find them. If you put the rusty objects in a jam jar and you fill it with 1 part vinegar, 2 parts water, and leave it for about 3 days, you'll see the liquid begin to change colour and it will go orangey. And that's when you know that the liquid now has iron in it, and iron is a modifier for dyes. So, as you can see, this dye is a dark brown. And as we add the iron modifier in, it's going to go from dark brown to black. You can strain your tea dye if you like. I don't strain it. I always just tend to leave the tea bags in because they're in a bag. You're not going to get little bits of tea all over your fabric. And also it means that the dye can just keep strengthening as your fabric's in it. So what you're going to do is take your pre-wetted fabric and you're going to put it in slowly and make sure that all of the different parts of the fabric are being touched, they're in contact with the dye. That's going to make sure you have a really lovely even colour. And now I'm just going to leave the fabric in the dye for about an hour, and then we're going to take it out and see what happens. This has actually only been in for about 20 minutes, but as you can see it's already developed a really lovely colour, so I think I'm ready to take that one out. So again, be careful, use gloves if you're doing this at home. I'm just going to wring that out. And then I'm just going to rinse that in some cold water. There you go, you have really beautiful shades of grey there, like a lovely stone colour. After you've taken your 3 beautiful dyes out of the pot, if you just leave them to dry and leave them for 3 or 4 days before you wash them. So this is what we call the curing period, and you're just allowing the colours to just really bind with the fibres when you do this. And then after that you can wash them by hand in warm water with a pH neutral washing powder. So most eco-friendly washing powders are pH neutral, or also often washing up liquid is, so you could always use that as well. The onion skin and the tea dye, because of the tannins in them, are both permanent. However, the avocado dye you might find begins to fade slightly over time, and that's because we didn't pre-treat the fabric. If you feel like the colour does begin to fade, then you can always just collect more avocado skins and just dye over it and keep deepening that beautiful pink colour. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy your home dye experiments.